Thanks for tuning in. I just wanted to talk a little bit about today why I call my business True Calling Counseling, um, and just give people some background a little bit. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate that. And hopefully, if you hear something that resonates with you and you feel like you need services, please give me a call. And if I can help you, I'll be able to refer you to someone. So my business is called True Calling Counseling, or my private practice is called True Calling Counseling and Consulting. The reason why I called it True Calling, hopefully, will be evident as I go through and talk a little bit about what my thoughts were. So when I was a kid, I didn't get a lot of the skills that I needed to become who I was meant to be. And in Jeremiah 29:11, the Bible tells us that we have a purpose. God has a purpose and a plan for our lives. And also, it also talks about in the Bible that in Psalms 127:3, that children are a gift from God. And so I definitely did not feel like a gift as a child. I felt more like a burden to my parent. I had a single parent. And I was just not taught how to develop my own personal identity. I was always trying to please others and be who I thought they wanted me to be. Uh, what I will say, and I'll probably say this a couple of times, is that this is not about blame. This is about me trying to understand and to make the changes that I need to make that will serve me better as a person as I navigate through this life with my family, my friends, and then anybody I come in contact with, and that does include my clients. An example that I'll use is when I was in high school. When I was in high school, I was good in math and science. And so, as a result of that, I was encouraged. Well, I won't say I was encouraged, I was told that you should go into engineering. And it never occurred to me to challenge that, and not challenge it in a negative, disrespectful way, but just to kind of explore what I wanted to do based on who I was as a person. And because I didn't understand that, I had a unique identity and I had a purpose on this planet, then I just kind of went along. And what happened was I came to feel that what I had to say and who I was didn't matter. It only mattered that I did what the people in my life told me to do. And even those people who, I thought were supposed to unconditionally love me, when it actually did matter, it did matter what I had to say. It did matter what I thought. It did matter what I wanted. So my trying to please other people, in addition to the childhood abuse that I suffered, caused me to develop symptoms of anxiety and depression over the years. Because what I found out is that I wasn't being true to myself. And so even when I talk to clients and I ask them what they want and who they are, some people can't even answer that question because nobody's ever asked that of them in the past. And so I find that fascinating. Um, and I didn't also have any coping skills to deal with the craziness in my life. And so I'm still dealing with some of the effects of that as well. So I haven't arrived either. I feel like I'm a little further along than most people who maybe not have sought counseling, but I still have things that I have to work on as well. And even when I was in college, it never even occurred to me that I could change my major. Even though I saw other people doing it, it's like, this is what people told me to do, so this is what I'm going to do. And even though it did serve me well from a financial standpoint, I never really felt comfortable completely in that space. And that's why I really had to leave. But the catalyst for me to leave, and it just is what it is when my mother died. I always felt like I had to be accountable to my mother, even though I was in my 40s. And the way that I think about And I know it was a different time, different age, but the way that I think about parenting is that, it's my job to help my child find what their purpose is in life. And then for them to support them, and then to allow them to fly, to go and do what they were meant to do. But when my mom died, I felt, it was a very sad occasion. It was very sudden, but I must say I felt freedom when she passed away, because I felt like I did not have to explain to her why I was going to leave my job and go seek out what really filled my spirit. So even though my bank account was fine, I felt like I was dying. I was spiritually dying. My soul was just slowly getting crushed because I was not being true to myself. And so that also made me understand, or it's like I didn't have courage. I didn't have the courage to go to my mom and say, listen, mom, I appreciate, you valuing education, because that's one thing she did value, and I really appreciate that. But I have to live my life for myself, and not necessarily for myself in a selfish way, but really find out what God planned for me. And it's not, a slap in the face for her, but it was like, I have to listen to God and where God is directing me. So I wish I had the courage to tell her that when she was alive, to kind of share my hopes and dreams. And maybe that would have enabled her to share hers, because I do believe my mom was a young mother, and she was in college when she had her first child. And so she basically, her life got derailed and she was never able to get it back on track because she was in college. And so I know that that was something that was important to her, but she didn't go back and pursue that. And now you see people, and I love that. That's one of the things I love about social media, is you can see all of these inspirational stories about people who are much older, going back to school and doing all these fantastic things with their life. And for me, it gives me hope that you're never too old. It doesn't matter what your skin color is. You just have to know who you are, and help. And if you don't know how to figure that out, go and work with someone who can help you figure that out. So I did wish I had the courage. And so now, what I want to be able to do is help others through their journey and their process. Like I said, um, I'm a little further along than most people, but we all have a past, we all have a present, and we all have a future. And to be able to understand what their true calling is. And some people might call that purpose, but true calling just really resonated to me. And I have learned that I need to know who I am as a person, among other things, my strengths, because we all have strengths and we all have opportunity areas. What I value, I value my family, I value education, I value helping and serving people. I value that. What my expectations are, because sometimes our expectations are very high and unrealistic, and then what my boundaries are. There's some things that are deal breakers I just don't participate in, and that is what I choose to do, and that's what gives me peace, and that's what gives me direction. And again, as I just go through this life. And what I also found was there were beliefs that I learned as a kid that, just did not serve me well. And, just to take anything just because it's a family member, that is completely, in my book, not going to happen. I have boundaries, I have expectations for everyone. And I need to know myself and what they are for me, so that I can be clear with other people, and then they can make choices. If they, for example, this is a story that I heard, and it was just so funny, and it goes back to how we things are passed down in our families, and we may not understand why, but then when we go ask questions and seek to understand, it kind of may be comical depending on what it is. So in this particular case, it is. And so the story goes is that, family dinners or Christmas dinners or Thanksgiving dinners, Easter dinner, whenever your family gets together and prepares a meal, And, grandma makes a ham. Okay. So grandma makes a ham, and grandma always cuts the end of the ham off before she puts it in the oven. And so that's what you saw growing up for 20, 30, 40 years. And then you start to do dinner yourself, and you're like, okay, we got to cut the ham. We got to cut the end off the ham. And so it's like, why do we have to cut the end off the ham? It's like, because that's the way grandma did it. Okay, we got to do that. And so they're like, well, I don't understand why you got to cut the end off the ham. And so the question is, and so then you say, okay, let's go ask grandma why we got to do this, because that's the way she always did it. So grandma says, why did I cut the end off the ham? You're like, yeah. She's like, because I did not have a pan big enough for the ham. So in essence, there was absolutely no reason to cut the end off the ham, only except for the fact that she didn't have a big enough pan to put the ham in. And I'm like, oh my God. So, how many of those things carried over into our life? Because we just didn't either ask the question and we just say, oh, that's the way mama did it, or that's the way grandma did it, and we going to do it that way. And so, in my mind, that doesn't make any sense. So, again, you might want to cut the end off your ham. You keep cutting the end off your ham. But if you got a pot big enough, why are you going to go through all that work if it doesn't matter? Okay. So there were things that I had to question. And so the way I think about it like unpacking a suitcase. I gotta unpack this suitcase, and I gotta look at all this stuff that I didn't packed in this suitcase for the last 52 years. So for me, it's 52 years. And really look at it and say, why do I believe this? Why do I do this? And there are things that still trigger me, trust me. And I gotta look at that and say, Joyce, why are you doing that? And does it serve you well? What are you, and I could be missing out on some of the things that God has planned for me, because I'm holding on to all of this old stuff that I haven't looked at yet because of various reasons. I could be scared, I could just not be aware, I could be doing it on purpose, but I have to question myself and say, do I still want to do this? And if you do, you deal with the consequences. And so again, this is all about purpose. This is all about knowing who you are as a person and not what anybody else thinks or feels or says or does, because at the end of the day, that really doesn't matter. And again, I want to stress, because a lot of people say, well, your mom did the best she could. Okay, that may be true. I don't know, because a lot of times people don't, my mom didn't talk about what she went through and why she went through. So I don't know. So maybe that is true. Now, I technically don't believe that because we never talked about anything. So it might be true, but I have no data to support that. And so I just wish we had talked more. I wish that I knew more about her upbringing, because I didn't. Just so I could understand her a little bit better. And I wish, we could have been, closer than we were when she passed away. But this is not about blame. This is about understanding yourself. It's about making the changes that you want to make. It's about being aware of what you're doing and how that's impacting you, so that you can become who you want to be. Um, and that's just what it's about. So again, it's about being your true self, following your purpose, and being true. And so that's why I named my business True Calling, because I feel like I'm on that journey to understand what my true calling is based on everything that I've been through in my life. So thank you for listening. Be well, and take care.